From his flawless portrayal of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland to building a multi-million-dollar franchise with Captain Jack Sparrow and Pirates of the Caribbean, these are Johnny Depp's most iconic roles. Johnny Depp tackled the Mad Hatter in Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland with such confidence and ease that it felt like he was born to play this role. This wasn't the silly, fun little animated version from the 1940s. Burton's version was nightmarish and dark, bringing plenty of tragic elements to the surface. Depp's performance was not only compelling, it was incredibly entertaining. He brought his signature wit and aesthetic to the character and breathed new life into the classic fairy tale. Compared to some of his earlier work, the Mad Hatter has a lot more energy attached to the character, and Depp's delivery just showed the range he has as an actor. Years after the film's release, fans continued to cosplay as Depp's version of the Mad Hatter, which just goes to show that his charisma and charm made the role absolutely memorable. It also helps that Depp is the kind of actor who's willing to pull out all the stops and go through whatever makeup transformations are needed if it means getting to deliver a stellar performance. I'm sure the fans can agree that the Mad Hatter has become one of Depp's most influential roles of all time. Honestly, who else could have played this part with such ease? Speaking of quirky characters, it's amazing to think that Johnny Depp's role as Sam in Benny and June actually worked. After Benny loses a major bet one night, one of his fellow poker players' relatives, Sam, comes to stay with his sister, June, and him. Oh, by the way, June is also schizophrenic. Now, Sam's character is a total oddball, one who lives in his own crafted reality. Benny and June is perhaps the closest thing Depp has come to a rom-com. The manner in which his character interacts with June wins her over with his eccentric ways, charms not only June, but also the entire audience watching Depp become Sam. A lot of actors would bring nonsensical silliness to the role of Sam, but not Depp. Also, even the physical comedy that the prolific actor brought to Sam makes for some of the best moments of the entire movie. It fits Sam's character like a glove, who is illiterate and perhaps finds the act of physical comedy his only true mode of communication. Genius! He approached the character with such innocence and sincerity that the film was truly a treat to watch. It really is an odd little love story, one that you can't help but admire, because Depp brought so much light to it. Now, do you know why Tim Burton keeps going back to Johnny Depp? It's because he trusts him to bring a role to life, exactly how he intends when he's visualizing a film. This was the case when he cast the 59-year-old actor as the very iconic Ichabod Crane in Sleepy Hollow. This beautifully haunted, R-rated horror film is perhaps Burton's most well-crafted film. A fully gothic story about a headless horseman decapitating people is where Depp managed to really solidify himself as an incredibly talented actor. Johnny Depp delivered a near-perfect performance as the pragmatic police constable, a man of science who isn't buying into this whole nonsense of myths and phantom horsemen. What really amazed audiences was the fact that not only was Depp able to fully immerse himself in his role, he also brought his classic sense of humor to an otherwise very spooky tale, and it worked flawlessly. Depp's persona as Crane goes from being calmly skeptical to full-on hysterical and provides just the right amount of levity to this super serious film. Without his performance, Sleepy Hollow would have easily been dull, dark, and gloomy. With him in it, it's quite the opposite. Despite the fact that most of Depp's movies feature quirky or dark storylines and elements, he manages to make each performance distinctly different from the other, and Ichabod Crane is no exception. And while we're still talking about Tim Burton and gothic storylines, I can't not mention Johnny Depp in Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. A heartbroken barber in London during the Victorian era, who's out for revenge, just sounds like it was practically written with Depp in mind. Based on the Broadway musical, the father of two had some rather gigantic shoes to fill. Now, he may not be the best of singers, but he definitely gave it his all in the titular role and held his own in a rather impressive supporting cast. The best part about this role was how flawlessly Depp managed to showcase both Sweeney Todd's heartbreak and his anger, which left the audience on edge throughout. Burton really let Johnny soar in this one, and boy, did he soar. For Depp, the challenge in this role was taking up a character like Sweeney Todd and trying to make people feel for him while he's busy slashing people up. Can't have been easy. Nothing about his performance comes off as two-dimensional, and Depp's portrayal of a man full of despair, hate, and vengeance is simply unforgettable. He isn't just singing those Stephen Sondheim songs. He's emulating the lyrics, which are there to exposit the plot, and Depp is the perfect choice for that. You don't really get to see throat-slitting set to music, but Johnny just makes it work. See, I meant it when I said Johnny proved his range as an actor. While Sweeney Todd and Ichabod Crane may have cemented him as the perfect choice for eccentric characters, playing J.M. Barrie in Finding Neverland was something that came as a pleasant surprise. It's definitely an underrated role, and the way the talented actor showcased his character's relationship with a family that later inspired him to write the iconic tale of Peter Pan is done so well that it's a total departure, a welcome one from his usual roles. In fact, did you know that his performance even earned him an Academy Award nomination? Finding Neverland lets the audience see Depp in a bit of a different light. The role is much more heartfelt and realistic, and one of the very few roles where he's not playing a fantasy version of the character. J.M. Barrie is a very real person, and Depp claims he was drawn to him, mostly because he could relate to Barrie's instincts for staying in touch with his childish, imaginative side. Unlike many of his previous characters, Finding Neverland lets Johnny Depp dive deep into an interesting and unique perspective, one that came without any gimmicks, quirkiness, or makeup transformations. But let's not forget, quirky roles are what make us love Depp so much. Playing a slightly loco, wacky chocolatier, Willy Wonka in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Depp makes sure to become unrecognizable in the role, with a voice and mannerisms that we weren't ready for. He's a whole different person as he leads all the children around his incredible shop, where each childlike characteristic of his just makes us fall in love with his portrayal of Wonka. Burton's 2005 film is often heavily praised for fully embracing some of the more darker undertones of the character, and fans felt that it was Depp's wonderful performance that really brought those elements to light. There are plenty of moments throughout the film where Willy Wonka isn't very nice to people, and it's often quite blunt and to the point. But does that make us hate him? Nope. Johnny Depp makes sure we never forget the fun side of Willy Wonka. He brings forth a walking contradiction, whimsy and logic, anarchy and moral order. With this character, it truly felt like Depp manages to bring a part of himself every time he comes across an eccentric role because he relates to them so well. And that brings us to his greatest role, Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's not just a great role though. Captain Sparrow is also one of the greatest characters in the history of film, mostly thanks to the most iconic performance of Depp's lifetime. When director Gore Verbinski set out to adapt an iconic Disney attraction, it seemed like it was doomed to failure. I mean, who could have predicted that Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow would be so compelling and likable that it would go on to launch one of the biggest franchises in Disney history? A movie based on a theme park ride became successful enough to produce 5 films. This success is obviously heavily reliant on Depp's portrayal of the quirky character. His version of Jack being oddly effeminate, perpetually drunk, and a lustful train wreck perfectly encapsulates everything that Sparrow should be, and it's absolutely genius on the actor's part. There's no doubt that Captain Jack Sparrow will be Johnny's everlasting legacy. Even if Pirates of the Caribbean continues on, people who aren't even fans of the franchise will agree that no other actor could have brought forth a better version of depicting this iconic role. Terry Rossio and Ted Elliott probably couldn't even have dreamt of the kind of magnitude that Depp has brought to their written words. The role is just played to perfection, and there's no one else who could have done it better. Not even close. From building a franchise with Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, to his flawless portrayal of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland, these were Johnny Depp's most iconic roles.